Shalom, and welcome back to Psychology of the Parsha for Parsha Ki Teitzei. In this week's Parsha, if you look up at chapter 22, verse 8, at Shlishi, one of the many mitzvot in this week's Parsha, Ki Tikneh Bayit Chadash. The Torah says, when you acquire, build, buy a new home, V'asita ma'akeh ligagecha. You should make a barrier, a barricade for your gag, for your roof. V'lo tasim damim beveitecha. You should not put, literally, but you should not cause blood to be spilled in your home. Ki yipol hanofel mimenu. For the faller may fall from it. Literally, this is the law of taking the proper necessary precautions to ensure that one's home, one's living quarters, and likewise one's business place, one's property is safe and adequate to ensure that people don't get hurt there. One has a responsibility to see to it that the environment they're in or they're in charge of is a safe environment. Of course, for example, as it says, Ki tivneh bayit chadash, when you build a new home, the halacha is that it's not only a requirement for a new home, but rather even if the home is new to you or is being renewed to you. Meaning, even if you buy an old home or an existing place, or somehow you now come in direct control, have direct authority of an area that people may frequent, then you have an obligation to see to it that it's well protected. Like everything else in the Torah, this pasuk, this verse, also serves as a message, as a guide in how one should go about their life, and how one should go about conducting their life in respect to the service of Hashem and improving themselves and being a better person. The Shalah HaKadosh, the Holy Shalah, which is the acronym for his work, the Shnei Luchot Habrit, his actual name is Rabbi Yeshayahu Horowitz, he points out that this verse actually speaks to every person. Because if you think about it, it's not necessarily so that one should ever have to or should be required to fulfill this mitzvah. When you live in an apartment building, you own a condo, you have to pay your dues, but you're not necessarily responsible for what happens on the roof. It's none of your business, actually. You don't belong there. If somebody lives in a home that already has a gate or that has a slanted roof, then they never come to this obligation. However, like everything else in the Torah speaks to each and every person. The Torah speaks to you, the Torah speaks to me, in each and every mitzvah. So what then is the concealed, subliminal message in this verse? And it goes as follows. He explains how Gag, roof is something which goes on top of the abode, on top of the structure. The roof represents the ego. The roof represents that which is on top of everything. Our accomplishments, our literal, legitimate accomplishments, those are ours. But the ego, the ga'ava, the haughtiness, that is like a roof that grows and it goes over, and it's that space that's over that top ceiling of our accomplishments. And thus what the verse is saying, Ki tivneh bayit chadash, when you're building a new home. Now what does it mean when you're building a new home? As I mentioned, the halacha is that it's not only when you're building a new home, but even when you're acquiring already an existing home. Bayit, home, house, is actually also a reference to our materialistic existence. Our bodies are like the bayit, the home, the house for the soul. And thus what it's telling us is, in the body, in our material endeavors, in our refining of our midot, of our character traits, which is directly connected to our bodies, to our emotions, to our feelings, to our psychology, one needs to continuously look at it as a new endeavor. He has to continuously renew and anew everything about themselves, continuously grow. The neshama is perfect, the soul is perfect. The bayit, however, the home, however, is not. And thus we read it this way: Ki tivne bayit chadash. As you are building a new home, as you're constantly building and growing to become a better person, what is imperative? Ve'asita ma'akel gagecha. You have to constantly make that barricade, that barrier for your ego, for your haughtiness. Why? Ve'lo tasim damim mibetecha ki yipol hanofel mimenu. Because the faller will fall from it. And of course, in a literal sense, the question is, the faller will fall. Why don't you say because one will fall from it? And the answer is, in a literal sense, the sages point out that this is telling us, quote, the one who fell, the one who will fall, the one who will be hurt, perhaps it was his destiny from Hashem to be hurt. But make sure it doesn't happen in your place. In other words, you don't become the vehicle. You don't become the place on which Hashem's destiny will be let out on that person. And likewise here, there might be something in you that might slip. There might be something in you, that some destiny to fall. Don't let it be a result of your arrogance. Don't, so to speak, make it happen by being haughty. And this is the message of this verse. Do you need a roof? Of course you need a roof. There has to be some level of pride, some level of some self-feel-good, if I may. But you got to put a limit to it. You got to put a gate. Otherwise, as you're trying to become better, you might become more arrogant and then slip and fall. And then everything that you did, perhaps many of your accomplishments, will become also a nofel and fall with it. May Hashem always give us the wisdom, the direction, and the courage to grow in our character traits and to continuously have the proper perspective on how to make that healthy barrier to curb our over-enthusiasm and our eagerness for that self-haughtiness. Shalom.